Good afternoon, everybody, or a happy Monday to you all. I guess it'll be a little bit of a different week, a fun week for us. This is the Pga Dfs first look show for the CJ Cup. It is not in Jeju Island, South Korea. It is actually in Sin City, Las Vegas. We get to stay in Vegas for a week. Jeff, thanks for joining me here each and every Monday. We had a tough week last week, you and I. We chatted a little bit yesterday, a little bit before the show. Definitely a heart-wrenching beat. On top of my idiotic move, I had Matt Wolff tickets from this show, which you and I talked about, and that just turned me upside down after everything else that happened. Jeff, how about you? Were you able to navigate it? Did you get any money on Party Marty?
I mean, no money. Martin Laird's a dude I've actually talked about. I might have even put him on my three guys under 5% section on the Awesemo article I write every week, The Approach. So it's a free article. You guys can check that on the site every week. I always do three guys I think who are good tournament targets under 5%. I've definitely put Martin Laird there. I can't remember. I'm going to have to go back and check if I had him there last week. He was definitely on my short list though. So I had exposure to him in DFS, and I actually had him with Matt Wolff in lineups. It's just those were all 3 and 4 of 6 lineups because so much of the chalk crashed. So I couldn't take advantage of him in DFS. I didn't get to him from a betting angle or anything like that. I actually had my long shot was Wyndham Clark, who was in it, but obviously he fell off on Sunday. Not unexpected. What was unexpected was Martin Laird playing Victor Dubuisson from the match play in 2015 or whatever. So it sucked, but it happens. And yeah, I had the Wolff ticket as well. I think I mentioned him as my favorite bet on the show last week, and I mentioned him a lot of places, so that one hurt. You always expect Matt Wolff to get past Austin Cook and Martin Laird in those situations, but sometimes the underdog has the day. So
yeah. So let me ask you a question in your betting, more of a betting philosophy question. You're sitting there with a Matt Wolff ticket. He's in a 3-way playoff with Cook and Laird. He's likely the favorite to win. Have you ever? Do you ever? And when do you, if you do, hedge in that situation?
So. It's a tough call. I mean, I think if you're looking at this long term, I don't think hedging is as the profitable move. In most cases, I don't think it's the profitable move. The reason you're taking a guy like Matt Wolff is because you think he offers good value in the outright market, right? And yep. So when you're getting him down at those odds against players like Cook and Laird, I mean that's the kind of spot you want, right? So it didn't work out this time. I still think long term. Hedging in that spot isn't the right move, but you could have gotten Laird and Cook at good prices to hedge on too, I guess is the other yeah,
I guess that was my thing. If he's, is there a point in that playoff where Wolff gets to plus 140,
right?
Try and put some of that money. I sat there, I didn't do any, I was team no hedge. I find that that's probably the best way to go most of the time. But I guess in this situation, it's interesting conversation because you have a win if Wolff wins.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. I got a 3-way, and that's the thing. It's 3 guys, right? You have to hedge 2 people, which makes it even tougher. And if we had gone down to 2 people, I definitely would have looked at it. I think if there just came a good spot. I'm of the view is hedging is kind of just when your guy gets you're just kind of avoiding disaster. I like to hedge small. I don't want to lose, like I said, a lot of that edge that I got from, or perceived edge that I got from betting the guy in the first place, right? Because I think long term you want to let that play out as much as possible. So hedging to me, it's a risk thing. It's how much risk you want to take on. Everyone's got different philosophies. I think long term, the less you hedge, the better. And when you do hedge, you want to get in situations where you're getting really good odds. If you're betting someone else to win, obviously, or as a hedge, then you want to get really good odds on them. Make sure it's a good spot. So this was just a situation where, and the other thing is, look, it's Matt Wolff against Cook and Laird, right? I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I just couldn't be. I'm just if Wolff loses, that's fine. But this is a spot where you expect him to win. He didn't. I can live with it.
Yeah, you gotta, I guess, as you mentioned, kind of just live and die by the bets you make and kind of stick with it. So. All right, let's move on to our second topic. Actually, first, before we go on, let's just talk about Matt Wolff really quickly, being a bridesmaid. Runner-up in back-to-back events now at 2 vastly different golf courses and 2 incredibly different PGA Tour events. Is he becoming one of the more elite plays? DraftKings this week is telling us that he is. I had him projected at $10,000, and that's exactly what DK put him at. I think it maybe is time we got to talk about him in the elite of players at this point. I mean, it's getting pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I hopped on him last week. Like, I think some people might have just been like, I don't really want to bet Matt Wolff at 25-1 after I just got him at the U.S. Open. But you look at his, shorter and longer term look, and it projects as a player who, like, he's not going anywhere, right? I mean, this is a player who's prolific winner in college. He won really quickly out on the PGA, and we've seen guys like Morikawa come through now with a couple more wins. Like, it's coming for Matt Wolff. I mean, the only knock against him, you could say, well, he's 21. Maybe it takes like another year for him to really get those wins rolling. But I don't know. I think this is completely fair where he's priced now. The tee to green stats say so too. I just think you can see it. Like, the confidence is there with him. I mean, shooting yourself into contention in 2 straight major championships. Again, we got unlucky last week, but in a lot of ways, like, if he had won, he might have even been more expensive this week. So, if we're looking at it like event by event situation, you kind of got to be looking at like, okay, I'm kind of glad he lost, because he might have been even more expensive and had even worse odds if he had actually won that playoff.
Yeah, it's true. In a no-cut event, $10,000, we will certainly talk a bit more about Matthew Wolff as it continues here. But now let's talk a little bit about Will Zalatoris and the special temporary membership that they have on the PGA Tour. We're also going to talk about Justin Suh. So I want to mention Will Zalatoris. We're going to do a little bit of math here on the show today. So if you like math, give us a like and subscribe to our channel here. We're going to kind of teach you guys, go down the road of the FedEx Cup point distributions. And again, does this matter for us for DraftKings this week? No, it doesn't matter for us DraftKings this week, but it may matter in the future because this guy is pretty close to getting on the PGA Tour. All right, so we got 105 points for his T6 at the U.S. Open. Okay, not bad, right? Corrales, he pulled in another 95 points for his T6 or T8 there. I'm sorry, 80 points. 80. So we got 185. And then last week, he got 100 points. So he's at 285. And what does he need to get to the actual specially temporary membership? Well, he needs another 35 or so points. Just over 300 FedEx Cup points will get him there. So that means he's real close. It means if he makes a cut the next time out, he's going to be offered this. And that gives him basically access to every single tournament except for these no-cut events that we have in the next 2 weeks, the WGCs and the majors. But basically, he's going to play a full schedule, very similar to Will Gordon and Doc Redman has done in the past couple of years. Is this guy in play almost every single week now when he gets to tee it up? I mean, he's almost top 50 in the world, and he doesn't even have status on the PGA Tour yet.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's coming up for him. Like, if he gets in the top 50 players in the world, then he's going to have access to these. Like, he could get in a situation almost where he's not even a PGA Tour member, and he's, like, getting into the WGC events or something. It would actually be really weird, wouldn't it? You see him, like, playing on the Korn Ferry Tour, and then he just pops up at a WGC or something. But I don't think that'll happen. I think he's got one more start. He'll get the full membership, and his days of the Korn Ferry Tour will be over. But yeah, I mean,
for all intents, if he wants to go back for the next 2 weeks, he can. But I think 3 weeks, what is it, the RSM or the Bermuda? In 3 weeks, once this no cut is done, he'll make the cut.
He'll be at the Bermuda, and then he's still got the RSM and the OHL Classic.
Yep.
All he needs is like one top 30 from those. I mean, he'll be fine. So it's just a matter of wait. It's really just the real run for him will be next year. But yeah, as far as absolutely, if he's gonna be priced like he was last week, he's a must play. That was one of the misses I went off last week. I thought, maybe fatigue's gonna set in, and this will be the spot where Zalatoris just regresses a little bit or something like that. But nope, just straight up, balling again, getting himself in contention. And I don't know. I mean, do you see people throwing out the idea, he's got one Korn Ferry win, and like how much better is he really than some of these other players? But it's so consistent. I mean, just ridiculously consistent. So I mentioned, the putter is still a thing with him, and maybe that'll be something that holds him back from necessarily being like a prolific winner. But I think eventually he'll get there on the PGA Tour. And just from a DFS perspective, it's like another a more consistent Tony Finau, I think, is what you're going to get from Will Zalatoris. So
that's an interesting comparison. I like that. Next guy I want to talk about in this category is Justin Suh. And this guy now, he's going to get a start. He secured about 90-ish points in last week, another 80 at Corrales. So he's at 170. So that's a real good start for him. The minimum he'll get out of that is into the Korn Ferry Tour finals at the end of the year. So if he doesn't make any more cuts, he's going to secure himself at least a chance to get status either on the Korn Ferry Tour or back to the PGA Tour through that Korn Ferry Tour finals. But with another top 10, he's got another 5 sponsor exemptions to go for this year. If you had to put your money on seeing this guy in the small sample that we have in the last little bit, you think he gets it done as well?
Yeah, I kind of do. I do. I mean, look, these guys are so talented, these young guys. And I know, I think it was you I was talking about with him. I mean, he was in the same class as, like, you know, the guys who are winning here. I mean,
Morikawa and Wolff in Hovland. Yep.
Like, I mean, you know, you definitely need to dive a little deep on Justin Suh if you're not sure of the name yet. This was expected of him kind of like a year ago. It's just he took a bit of a different road. So, yeah, I mean, just to add another player to like the pile here. I mean, you can have Suh, Zalatoris, another couple young studs to play next year. Guys who just should be ramming out top 10s. I think he gets it done. I really hope he gets it done because I want to see him have the same opportunity next year and you know, be able to take advantage of that maybe early in the year in case players aren't convinced. So, yeah, a couple good performances. I didn't get on him last week because you never know. I mean, we had the one good performance, but yeah, I'm sold now. Like when he comes again, he'll be firmly in my radar.
Yep, absolutely. And it was a little home event. He lives out in Vegas now too, so definitely had everything going right for him. What I like to see out of him, when I was watching Corrales, and if you've learned about this guy a little bit, he kind of takes a little bit of a mantra from one of my other favorite players, Spieth. He relies on his putter, but what I love to see at Shriners is he was top 5 in strokes gained on the approach. So certainly has the approach game off the tee. You know, couldn't really tell last week with how firm the fairways were. Everybody was hitting at 340. So
yeah.
All right, let's go into our DFS review this week, which has a little bit of a different title, if you will. And we'll get to why that title is the way it is in a little bit. But first, let's just go over a couple of the top performers. And man, TPC Summerlin was absolutely shredded by these golfers last week. We had a ton of golfers over 100 points. And I only put the golfers that scored above 112. Martin Laird led with 152.5 points. Matt Wolff, 142. Austin Cook, 137. Bryson, 122.5. Will Zalatoris, 121. Abraham Answer, that's a 2 in the zeros mixed up. I apologize. It's actually 120 points. James Hahn also with 120. Peter Malnati again, Jeff, crazy. I mean, he gained 90 billion strokes putting, and then he just backs it up again. Justin Suh, 114. Matthew Neesmith and Sung J M round out the top 10. Going over to ownership, like you mentioned at the top, a lot of chalk missed. We had 5 missed cuts in the top 10 owned.
Yeah.
Obviously, Wolff and DeChambeau were kind of the obvious plays. Both of them came in the top 10. Patrick Cantlay was also 13th. So maybe the top end of the chalk hit, but for all intents, a lot of the chalk missed. So if you're a player like me that fades the chalk typically, it should have been a good week for you.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously had to be on the right chalk, with Wolff and Bryson. Bryson definitely, I just made a few too many balanced lineups for me. I did avoid a lot of these guys. I mean, like I feel good about myself for avoiding, Harris English. Didn't go crazy about, on a couple other guys, but like I didn't get enough Cantlay and I didn't get enough Bryson. So, I mean, that's kind of what killed me. But yeah, I mean, Hideki missing, I guess you could have said that's predictable given how bad he putts, and Harris English just felt overpriced. Ventura, a guy. Again, I don't mind. I like Christopher Ventura, but again, when he gets to be a little bit over to the chalky, I mean, he's still inconsistent in a lot of areas of his game. So I avoided some of this. I didn't get enough of the guys who made it, unfortunately. Again, with me being so high on Wolff, it did kind of feel like a lost opportunity. But again, it just speaks to PGA DFS and how frustrating it can be. You can smash 2 or 3 guys. If the rest of your lineups, you just can't get that right combo together, it's just doesn't matter. So just what.
Let's talk for a second. Yeah, let's talk for a second about Colin Morikawa, because I want to bring up an observation maybe for you to take a look at as we move further. But it's something that I've kind of observed with him. If he gets off to a slow start, which he's had now in the last 3 golf tournaments, he doesn't compete. In fact, he's missed the cut in the last 2 events. After shooting 6 over at the U.S. Open on day 1, bounced back with a 1 over on day 2, but missed the cut because of his, 76 on day 1. Here, On Thursday, he shoots what? 2 under on a course that obviously he should shred. I mean, he lives there. Comes back the next day with a 4 under, but it wasn't good enough to get to the cut. So whether it's taking advantage of that in the betting markets and saying, okay, well, if it's hard to fade people in the betting markets unless you're betting against them. But certainly maybe betting for him, if we see him get off to a hot start, I think maybe it's an opportunity to jump on him to win the golf tournament because we know he's got that upside. But the sluggish starts are concerning me a bit, especially when we've got to pay $9,800 for him like we did last week.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, he's, obviously we're all high on Morikawa now, but at the same time, he's been a little bit inconsistent, and it kind of feels like there's just a little bit of that major hangover. I mean, they get through, obviously he's won the big event. I mean, you kind of wonder what his motivation level for an event like the Shriners is at this point. I mean, I know he goes out there and says, I want to win every week. I know that, but mentally, there's probably a little bit of a block there. Again, not a guy that, and maybe that's how you play him right now. Just, you wait till you get to these WGC events or the majors and you get back on. Because I don't think there's anything crazy wrong with his game. Maybe he's just not putting quite as well, but we've seen what his upside is there. So I think there's definitely something to that. I think with a young player breaking through like that, it's a natural sort of block that you're going to have when you get to the Shriners. I mean, it's just like, okay, this isn't like I'm not getting as jacked up as I was at the PGA Championship. So I started slow. Let's just go have some fun.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, something to certainly keep an eye on as we try and pick up, of course, in any edge that we can see. So speaking of any edge that we can see, now is a great time to get in golf. I saw something earlier from a tweet from a golf journalist. We're 30 days away from Masters Week. That's just, it blows my mind, that we're going to actually have a Masters in November. So if you want to join us, it's a great time to do so. Join us for the month. It's $29.95 for the month, and that's going to take you up through Masters coverage. You won't get the weekend stuff there, but you could join us then for a week afterwards if you want to. It's only $8.95 for the week. And of course, if you want to try all the sports out, right now we got MLB playoffs, NFL is in full swing. NFL seems to obviously dominate the talk. And now we have one of the premium sites to FanDuel not paying anybody out or not even have any live scoring. But don't worry, we're going to sift through all of that. Join us for the week. Awesemo Weekly Plus Pass, $29.95. That's going to get you access to all of the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, and so much more. So perfect time to join us on the Awesemo Plus side today. So let's talk now about the top GPP line from last week, Jeff. As you can imagine, or as one can imagine, had Martin Laird in it, had Matthew Wolff in it, had Abraham Answer in it, but it also had Peter Malnati. There he is again, 1.6% owned. And then it also had Joaquin Niemann, who was maybe a throw in there, but still it fit the salary purposes, and he had a great weekend. He's definitely a weekend golfer, shooting 9 under, going 67, 66. So Peter Malnati, honestly, is really the only surprise here, right? Maybe Abraham Answer coming in at 9%. That was a really good against the grain play, actually.
Yeah, I think Answer was a pretty good play for sure. I mean, you looked at him at that price range, obviously a player who's had some really good results in fields like this year. So kind of a course, more of a second shot course where he doesn't have to worry too much about being a little bit short off the tee, and that can still get it out there a bit. So not surprised. I mean, he can fire it up in these low scoring events. At the Heritage and the Amex from earlier in the year, he's done it. So I definitely like that play. Kind of like the Neiman play as well for that reason. And then Malnati and Laird, like I said, I was kind of on Laird. I mean, Malnati doing this 2 weeks in a row is pretty crazy, but we do see this with the fall series, man. We these guys will just come in.
Speaking of fall series, Austin Cook. I forgot to mention him as a bridesmaid up top, but
right, I know, out of
nowhere in the fall series again.
Again, I mean, Malnati and Cook, you forget Austin Cook was even in this event. It's funny because he lost in the playoff. But, I mean, everyone's talking about Martin Laird, and obviously everyone wants to focus on Wolff again. But, Austin Cook was right there. I mean, could easily won the event. He probably had, no airtime too, right? So
very little prior to Sunday.
An Austin Cook win would have been a lot of ways weirder than Martin Laird, because Martin Laird was the guy everyone was talking about all day. So, he wasn't even in the winning lineup. Obviously, that's how low owned Austin Cook was. But yeah, Malnati, again, just this fall swing just brings out the best in some of these guys, and good for Malnati. He's riding a heater. Not much
and I
more
got to
to
give
say.
this guy credit, PK Golf 5, for only 8 entries. So like to see maybe a non-MMEer get it done. He found his way to Laird and Malnati in one of his 8 entries. I got to give it to him. 72% ownership, exactly what you and I say to target each and every week with 49.9 on the salary. So really well built there. Let's go and check and see how some of our favorite pros did this week and who they focused on. Alex Awesemo Baker is going to be our start, as he is each and every week. He went into Webb Simpson, Ricky Fowler, Matt Kuchar, Hideki Matsuyama, Louis Oosthuizen, Scotty Scheffler, Pat Cantlay, Jason Day, Colin Morikawa, and Will Zalatoris as his top 10%. I'm sorry, no, top 10 owned. 8 golfers over 20, which is maybe a little bit more aggressive than Alex normally does. Had some tough miscuts, especially with Ricky Fowler there. I mean, the poor guy, he just can't get it done. And then he was using a new putter, which was just terrible. Just not going well for Ricky. Anybody surprise you on that top 10? Honestly, the only one that maybe surprised me was Matt Kuchar, just because he's just really not playing well, but he ended up bouncing back, and I think he ended up in the top 35, which for 7,600 isn't bad. But anybody else surprise you there, or pretty standard?
Kuchar surprised me a little bit, but he was one of those guys I actually was kicking myself a little bit over. I mean, not that he obviously did anything crazy, but he's Matt Kuchar at that price in this field. Like, I probably should have given him a little bit more credit there. I mean, and look, on a week where a lot of chalk did busted and a lot of the plays chalk I used busted, which you'll see. I mean, he would have made for a nice play because I had exposure to the guys like with upside with Wolff and Laird. So that kind of sucked. But other than that, no one really there surprising at all. I definitely liked Oosty. He was in most of my lineups, to be honest. So Alex's ownerships, maybe a little bit high on Ricky, but again, like Ricky could have easily pulled the Sergio. Looked like he might do that.
Looked like he was playing really well. He was at 8 under, if I'm not mistaken, or 7 under.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, he looked like he was going to set himself up to make at least some kind of charge at the top 5 on the weekend, right? And then it was like, oh my God, like what was happening here? So that kind of, that was weird. But so you could have made an argument. I guess the only other thing you say is like, the complete Bryson fade over Webb. I guess who else are you going to pivot off of Bryson? But I'd almost rather like split the ownership there or just like, I don't know, maybe fade both. So I don't it's a little bit high for Webb Simpson than I thought I'd see. But other than that, no, not too many surprises with Alex's anyways.
Yeah, as we go down to mine, you'll see that you won't find Webb Simpson anywhere near the top. What a surprise there. I had what I felt was a pretty good core. I had 6 golfers end up in the top 10.
Yeah.
Had a really good week on picking that. Matt Wolff, Pat Cantlay, Sung J M, Bryson DeChambeau, Justin Suh. One of my top 5 owned, and all of those guys were in the, I think top 13. Only Sung J wasn't in the top 10, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But then I had like Doc Redman, Luke List, Hideki Matsuyama, and Scotty Scheffler as kind of that next batch of guys owned. So while I had a positive week on the GPP side, I didn't hit anything big, and it was because of that. I'll call it that 6th guy in the lineup. Those kind of 4 that I just mentioned really struggled. William Gordon, I also had about 14%. He missed on the number too. So tough out there. Positive week for me though on the GPP side. But
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
You
really did just miss because I mean you had exposure to basically all the guys you wanted. Even Sung Jae had a good week. Sue. That was definitely a close one. It feels like probably, hey. Yeah,
especially with Zalatoris there at 17% too. I mean, I really had that top 10 covered, but throwing in Matsuyama as kind of that second guy in the lineup a lot of times, or third guy, or Scheffler, both in that price range kind of crushed me. So, moving on. Oh, so my top lineup, 179th. Alex came in 428th. So nothing great there. Now we go to last week's winner, Mendizzle 81. He also went into Webb Simpson, Pat Cantlay, DeChambeau, Cam Smith, Hideki Matsuyama, Joaquin Neiman, Matt Wolff, Abe Answer, Colin Morikawa, Sergio Garcia, and Doc Redman. So no changes, no new golfers that we see taking from the pool of top 10 from Alex and I, no changes there. In fact, even when we bring in Brick 75, the only one he changes is Kevin Streelman, Paul Casey, and Joel Damon. I will say I'm surprised at Paul Casey. This really did not feel like a Paul Casey event. Maybe Brick was just relying on the ratings or his model there. But Paul Casey was really the only one that surprised me. Even Ben Hanan, I think, is a warranted play. I think he's totally fine there. And obviously, Brian Hooper, Brick 75, he was on Abraham Answer a little bit more so than the most of us. Anything else surprise you other than the Paul Casey ownership there?
I mean, Answer being like his highest owned player is a little bit interesting, but again, that made for a good GPP pivot. I mean, that's a quality player at, a little bit like the Matt Kuchar argument. I mean, just a quality player who is a little bit, if Abraham Answer, a couple months ago might have been like 10K in this event. He easily could have been up there, right? So You're getting a good price on him. I think that's kind of a sharp play. Kind of agree with you about Casey. Probably just, the ratings came out well on him and he decided to get like a little bit over the field. So I agree, though. I didn't really have much interest in Paul Casey this week. Coming off a rest, he's kind of feels like the same kind of, we mentioned about Morikawa. Sometimes he'll just show up at events like this and just, his focus on bigger events at this point in his career. So nothing crazy there, but those two guys definitely stood out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'll go over quickly. 81 players for Brian Hooper, 91 for M. Dizzle, 84 for Alex, and 57 for me. So maybe I'll add in a couple more players. Well, this week I definitely will. It's a no-cut. I'll play everybody in the field almost, except for a couple. But let's go into a lineup review. And the reason why I put the topic here as a 40K mistake is because that's what I made this week. So let's pull up my lineup that I actually entered. And it was Matsuyama, Morikawa, Wolff, Siwoo Kim, Luke List, and Justin Suh. However, at 9:30 in the morning on Thursday, it was the next one that I'm going to show you here. It actually had Patrick Cantlay and Sungjae Im, not Colin Morikawa and Hideki Matsuyama. But for some reason, at 9:30 on Thursday morning, I decided to change those top two guys, Cantlay and Im, who were going to be way low owned in the higher dollar stuff, and switch it to the chalk. And what did it cost me? It cost me 140 DraftKings points and $40,000. I would have come in a second place alone in the $800 had I had not touched the lineup, scoring 625 points. But, Jeff, we don't play what if in DFS, do we?
No, but those 2-for-2 switches or whatever, I've been there a million times. They hurt. It's you're so close. It's always a little bit hindsight is always 20/20 in this game, and
always does, right?
It could have easily worked out the other way. That's the only thing I'll say. But yeah, this was reminiscent of my week, man. I mean, you nailed like 2 or 3 guys, and then the other 3 just didn't do anything. So. There it is. Yeah. Still would have
a little screenshot magic here, with snippet and all that. I was able to show you what it would have looked like had I had not touched my lineup. This is what I would have been showing you here.
Yeah. That's that looks way better. The second one, I'm not gonna lie, but no, I mean, look, I had a bunch of stuff like that too. I wish I had gotten to Sanjay, in a lot of lineups. Not giving him any attention was one of my biggest mistakes too.
I guess the one thing I'll take away, and then we'll move on to your lineup here because I don't want to lament. Trust me, I've lamented in my own personal time plenty on this. The one thing I'll say is, first off, stick with your initial read, stick with your first answer on the question, right? I mean, that's always the first thing to do.
That is a good point because, like, I'll admit, most of my best weeks have been when I've, like, just made a lineup early and I've just stuck with it. And it's just like, I mean, it's a small sample size, but most of my best weeks in DFS have come when I've done that, so. I don't know.
That's definite number one. And I think number 2 for me is the way you really get leverage. And we talk about this a ton. The way you get leverage in GPPs is ownership. And the combination of ownership was like 25% for Cantlay Im versus 60% for Matsuyama Morikawa. Yeah. It's just almost, when you look at those guys as a 4 in a group, I'll take Cantlay and Im just as much as I'll take Morikawa Matsuyama in any tournament. And when you have an ownership half of it, I should have just easily gone there. But, hey, I didn't, and that's where we are. So let's move on to yours. Looks like you got nipped in the bud on that Scheffler missing. He dunked it. on 16. He was on another really important team for me last week, and him and Will Gordon sitting at 6 under was the ultimate tease, of course, after I made that terrible switch. Looks like you would have had a real good chance here had Scheffler made the cut. Threw up 100 points. You would have been right around 640 by my calculation, or right around 620, which would have been a huge score.
Yeah, definitely if Scheffler had done it. And then the other thing that hurt this one, I had a late swap in this too. I had Burns in this lineup.
For Wise.
For Wise. So Burns at least made the cut. That would have helped. So
points, yep.
Yeah, I mean it's frustrating because I had like another Wolff layered lineup that only got 3 of 6 throughs too. So I mean, it hurt to look at. I had Louis in all my lineups. And he saved he ended up paying off. So Henley was kind of disappointing, to be honest. But I don't know if I would have won any GPPs with Russell Henley, but definitely this one would have gotten up there. Would have, it's still been cashed or whatever at this, but
Henley was roughly the same price as Neiman, and they only had a 3 or 4 point differential. So I think just getting the 6 of 6 rate, if you had stuck with Burns and Scheffler had snuck through there, I think you would have had a chance.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, look, if you had a 6 of 6 and you had like Matt Wolff and Laird in it, you were going to do well almost regardless, right? So, yeah, definitely. I had a couple lineups like that. It was weird because, it wasn't sweating anything because it was over on Friday when you have 2 missed cuts. But yeah, it's funny to look back on it now and just be like, this was actually really, really close considering how Wolff and Laird ended up. So frustrating, but like we said, it just comes down to these 2-2 switches. So.
Well, for you, luckily, you didn't go and add in the points that would have happened and gone to the length that I did. And I will tell you, I got a great piece of advice from our buddy and boss, Alex Baker. And he told me, he's like, hey, look, the key is don't add in the points. Don't go back and follow it. And that's, of course, what I did. So if I do it again, which I hope to not, I'm definitely not going to be following the choice that I didn't or did make. So, all right, let's move on to Sin City Act 2. And I'm really excited to talk about Shadow Creek Golf Course for a little bit. But before we do, if you haven't got into NFL yet and you're a little timid, especially with the FanDuel stuff going on, we've got a great package for you, the NFL Express package. We've added some new tools to it. So for just $3.95, you can purchase the NFL Weekly Express Pass, which now includes everything you need for showdown and single contest formats. What you're going to get is access to Awesemo showdown and single game player projections, ownership projections, and top plays tools when you purchase the pass. In addition to the player rankings, lineup, builder, light, ownership rankings, and the top stacks express tool. So go ahead and join for just $3.95 for the express package. And we've got some Monday night giveaways. So check out our Twitter handle at Awesemo_com, and you'll have a chance to win some good stuff going on there. We've always got some really good stuff going on for Monday Night Football. And I got to be honest, DraftKings, if there's one company that loves all of these choices or changes in single games and being pushed back to Tuesday, it's got to be DraftKings, right, Jeff?
Yeah. This is what they, I don't know. I'm not going to bash any sites, but this has become a little bit more consistent with them over the years. So yeah, unfortunately for them, but I don't know. Hopefully they get it figured all out. Hopefully for the players too. I know there's some chatter about the offer they made and stuff like that to make it right. It's
a tough situation. If FanDuel was publicly traded in the front, I assure you they'd be doing something different, which is maybe why DraftKings is
I think it's probably a good call, actually.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sin City Act 2, though. We'll go back to golf here for a little bit. It obviously relocated, speaking of COVID, it got relocated here to Vegas because of the COVID and travel restrictions. But 4th time the event has been played. JT won it twice out on Jeju Island, and Brooks Koepka won it once. We've got possibly, though, the best field we've had in a really long time here. Any quick opening thoughts on the field?
No, it obviously Brooks Koepka coming back is going to be super interesting to see. By all accounts, he's just rehabbed. He didn't undergo another surgery or anything like that. So I'm interested to see how he responds, if he's going to bring some form into the Masters or not. I'm not overly confident that anything great is going to happen between now and then, but you want to see the guy get healthy. You want Brooks Koepka in the mix, obviously. So Definitely be interesting. I like the fact Rory's here and Xander, two guys haven't picked up a win. I think those guys will be really hungry this week. Definitely got a little interest in Rory, I think. Going down, obviously we got some Korean players added at the bottom. I honestly haven't done any research on any of those guys yet, so don't even ask me about them. They did just get added too, I think, to the field. So, yep. We also, I guess the other thing to mention, we have some guys coming over from Europe, like Fleetwood. Tyrell Hatton obviously won last week, the BMW PGA. Justin Rose played over there last week too. So there's some names there that have been traveling. I don't think it's like a huge deal to play them or not, but just something to keep in mind. Some of those guys had really good results over in Europe last week.
They did. Ty Hatton being one of them, and interesting you brought up Fleetwood. So how strong this field is. I'll go quickly down the recap of who gets to play here. It's 5 players from the Korean PGA Tour, 1 player from the Asian Tour, which is Jaehyung Tom Kim, I should say, who we've talked about a little bit on the show. Talk about a little bit more coming up.
Everyone knows him well by now.
Yeah. Everyone that watches the show obviously knows who Tom Kim is by now, probably. Then we've got some sponsor exemptions. And you ready for this list of sponsor exemptions? It's a good one.
Okay.
Tommy Fleetwood, Jordan Spieth, Justin Rose. It used to be Sergio Garcia, but with his win, that ended up qualifying him. Just crazy because the qualifications was top 60 in last year's FedEx Cup points ranking, and all 60 wanted to play. Then the 5 Koreans and then the 1 Asian Tour player. So they ended up having 12 sponsor exemptions, and obviously all those guys I just mentioned did not come in the top 60 last year in points. So just interesting to hear that Tommy Fleetwood and Jordan Spieth need a sponsor exemption to play in an event. For Spieth, it obviously just shows how bad he's been, and for Fleetwood shows how bad his year was last year for all intents. Crazy. Let's talk about Shadow Creek for a little bit. We saw it for the 2018 The Match between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson. It's a par 72, 7,500 yards. But, Jeff, I got to be honest with you. They set up the course so easy for that Tiger-Phil match. I mean, it was only playing like 7,300 yards that week. Tiger and Phil, they both hit about 10 of 14 fairways, about 11 of 18 greens for Tiger, 13 of 18 greens for Phil. But like I said, it was playing easier then. What do you expect out of this week? I mean, par 72, 7,500 yards in Vegas seems kind of short. I think it's going to be, if I had to give my opinion quick, I think it's going to be similar to last week, but the golf course is much prettier. It's built by billionaires rather than guys that, just had a little bit of money. Shadow Creek is built by Steve Wynn and MGM. It's going to be a beefed up version of last week is what I'm kind of taking with, a little more intricacies and trinkets and creeks running through.
Yeah.
I still expect it to be low scoring.
I don't know. I actually have I think it's going to be a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try and trick this out a little bit. I think I think the course might actually, again, I don't know enough about it. And we've never seen this in competition. But I think from the layout and how it looks like just the fairways aren't super, they're not massive. They got some creeks and trees obviously there that have been man-made guarding the fairways. I think it's going to play a little bit more Augusta kind of like Quail Hollow, where there's birdies and eagles and stuff. But I think the longer par 4s will play a little bit tough. So I'm not expecting like super low scoring. I think like maybe minus 15, maybe even like under that maybe gets it done. Kind of what we see at Memorial, maybe like most years. Obviously this year was insanely tough Memorial. I don't think it'll be that tough, but I think they'll try and make this tough on the pros. Like it's Shadow Creek first time, like you said, it's an exclusive course. So at the same time, this is just my guess. You could be dead on, and it's not that long a course. So if the rough isn't up at all, and the fairways aren't as hard as I think they are to hit, like it could get low scoring quickly. But I think they're gonna make this a little bit tougher. I think there's some tougher tee shots here, so we'll see. It is kind of gonna be up for debate, and maybe we'll get more info on it during the week. But I'm a little bit more optimistic that it'll be a tougher event.
So I think there's a couple of things that'll go into making it tougher. One, obviously the budget, now owned by MGM, the budget for this golf course to do things like that is probably unlimited. The fact that you got to pay $500 per round to play there, even if you're staying, I believe, at MGM. And I don't even know if they allow that anymore, but I know they used to. Regardless, I think that they have the capacity, that means to trick it up, to definitely make the greens. They could basically kill the greens and replace them on Monday after the tournament and be totally fine. So I think they can get this to play relatively much harder, certainly than last week. I don't think we're going to get a 24 under par winner, but I got in the high mid-teens, somewhere around 18 or 19 under. The par threes, I think that's the biggest point that I wanted to bring up between the match, if you're looking at that in this week, is that the par threes measured almost all of them at or under 200 yards, whereas this week they're going to play all the way back. That back nine, I think it's the 13th hole. It's a 260-yard par three.
Right.
That's going to play really tough. And now there was a 260-yard par three this past week at Summerlin when they played it all the way back there. But when you throw in the trinkets and things that I know are there, and I believe they'll be putting there this week, I expect it to be the hardest hole. But there is a drivable par four and 4 gettable par fives. I think that's why I think we're going to keep that scoring pretty low. Moving on. Now, did you watch the match? Are you excited to at least see it in full competition this week?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a cool course. There's a few bendy dog legs, like I said, that will make for interesting setups. I mean, guys will have to shape some shots and stuff like that. So,
some shots. Oh no, Jordan Spieth's in the field. Don't say that.
But no, definitely. I mean, I think the greens will be obviously a lot tougher to hold and stuff like that. I think the other thing that'll come down to it. Are they really going to trick out the greens and make them just because they are bent grass? They maybe they'll just try and get them Augusta-like or something. So that'll be something else. The weather's pretty nice. It's going to, in the low 90s again. So could get really fast. If it does, I think that'll make it be a big factor too.
For sure. And I think you just brought up a good point. It's bent grass greens, Bermuda fairway. So exact same setup that we had last week in terms of the grass types. Does that give you a lean, or do you think that the best golfers that didn't play last week were likely already around the area practicing?
Yeah. I think a lot of the top golfers have fairly good familiarity with Shadow Creek. Like most of them have gone out there before. So, I do think the players who played last week have an advantage. We've seen it a lot in these situations where you get back-to-back events in like a close proximity. And often the guys who do well the first week end up doing well, and someone ends up winning the second week who played the first week. So I would say that, especially for outright betting, you might want to just again, it's not going to look, there's players in the field where you can't avoid them, like Rory and Xander. I mean, these guys are too good just to write off, but I'm just saying, if you're looking for maybe like, a dude who played well last week, maybe didn't like pop up with a huge finish. Maybe Sung J M is a good example. And now is in the field this week and played well last week. I like those types of players for, especially if you're getting a bit better value on them.
For sure. It's a great lead in actually to our first clicks, and want to make a note real quickly before we go into this. I mean, I think the salaries dropped today at like 155. So literally as we were getting ready for the show, they dropped. So we didn't have much time to look at it. But first, we'll do first clicks quickly. And again, odds, they haven't been out too long either. One of the first clicks I had, though, I mean, I love going down the board. And again, with as strong a field as this is, I don't think that these golfers can win or this golfer can win. But I do think that a top 20 is not out of the question, especially that it's a no cut and that we've seen this guy compete twice now and make the cut. And on the PGA Tour, it's Tom the Tank Engine Kim. He's coming in at 750 on a top 20. I mean, is that enough of an interest for you at a top 20, or still not quite buying into the potential of Jo Hyun Kim here this week?
No, I mean, it's getting up there. I mean, I don't know how much better you could expect to get in a limited field event, obviously, right? So I think that's fine. He's not going to be like my. I don't know if I'll go there personally, but I think if you're definitely on the train, the Tom train, then or whatever we're calling them, then I think it's fine. I think those odds in a limited field event, again, you're just not going to get much better than that. And we have seen him show up with some good rounds. So I think I've seen enough to say that like that's perfectly fine. I'm not sure if I'm necessarily going to go there, but yeah, for a big odds play, I'm not sure who else you're going to go to unless you want to take like
Nick Taylor,
Danny Leon or something like that. Like there's no one really. That's the other part of this. There's really no one else who's that appealing to me down here. So I think Tom Kim is probably the play, quite frankly, if you want longer odds with the top 20.
So let's maybe give a couple of our other quick little first clicks, and maybe we don't have many here as we kind of digest the field. We have, Dustin Johnson coming in at 8.5 to 1. Then we got guys like Rory kind of slipping back 14 to 1. Matt Wolff still there at 22 to 1, exactly. Maybe a little bit shorter than where we got him last week. But before you give your opinion on those, this will be cleared up by the time we tee off, so I'm not worried about it. But Tony Finau shouldn't be in this field, right? Because I don't see an out next to his name. He's printed on DraftKings at 9,400. Yeah. He's in the odds at 30 to 1. But unless he's gotten 3 negative tests, I thought he was a minimum out 2 weeks.
Yeah, I assume they're putting him there just so they can rule him out later, and just in case maybe in case he does pass the tests later in the week or something. I don't know. Yeah, I was a little perplexed by that too. Yeah, I didn't think there was any chance he'd be in the field this week, but I guess something to keep an eye on. Like you said, I think that'll probably be cleared up, in the next 24 hours. Be a little shocked if he played, but maybe he had a false positive or something, and maybe that's what they're waiting on. Yep. Maybe they haven't, because he did say he had no symptoms. So it's possible, either we had some kind of, false positive, or it's just they just haven't ruled him out and they're waiting until tomorrow to do that. So I have no idea. I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have any way to clear that up for you guys who are listening, but definitely just, keep an eye on. I think it's a possibility that one of those 2 scenarios is probably going to play out.
Yeah. I'm going to assume now, the last time I came up with this, it was Cam Champ, and Cam Champ, he didn't play that 1 week, and then he did come back that following week after getting those 3 tests and showing no symptoms. Maybe we have that with Finau. Like we said, we'll get that. That will come to us before lock. I can't imagine that it won't. And certainly if he's in the field, we'll certainly chat about him. But okay, any first clicks that you want to chat about? I told you mine, Jake Young, Kim. I always go down to the bottom of the board because those are the lines that end up changing the most. I don't think that one will actually change that much this week, so you don't have to rush to it or anything like that. But any first clicks for you?
So a couple guys. I mean, from an each way perspective, I really like the odds that I was getting on Bubba Watson. I think he's at plus 70 on the DK Sportsbook, but I find him at plus 100. So it's a pretty big difference on one of the books that I use. Obviously, with the each way, it's a top 5 bet as well. I think with the way Bubba's hitting the ball, and I think this course is going to set up well for him with the 4 par 5s. I think the dog legs right to left looks like a little bit more prominent. I think that's good for him. Should set up well for a lefty. I think this is a course Bubba could come in and really like. No one's going to be super familiar with the greens here or anything either. I think that's a positive for the bad putters this week.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Terrible putter, so I think that's going to help him out. I just like the price, though. Again, you definitely want to try and get obviously the best price you can, especially for an each way. But once I saw that 100, I kind of knew I was going to click him. And then just from a more outright perspective, I haven't clicked Rory yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have some money on Rory McIlroy this week. I like the way he's progressing. The off the tee game is there. Again, I think this course is going to be okay for him as well. I think I kind of like the fact for Rory that it's new too. I don't know why I like that, but I just do. I think that he just needs some kind of fresh start. We've seen, Sergio came in with a fresh start for the new year. I feel like Rory is in that conversation too. So I'm interested in Rory at these prices. You're just not going to get him that often at the same price as Xander Schauffele or even Patrick Cantlay. So I think I'm going to take advantage of that. And then from the mid-range, I already mentioned Sungjae Im. He's definitely going to be on my bets this week.
Yeah, let's chat about him for a second. 45 to 1, I'm seeing him here on DraftKings Sportsbook. And, of course, if you want to check for better odds, check out our odds shopper here on Awesemo.com. A perfect way to go and make sure you are getting those best odds because, listen, 5 and 10 points off is pretty significant if you're betting more than 10 or 20 or $100. So, certainly want to use that tool, Odds Shopper, over here on Awesemo.com. That is a free tool for everyone to use. Easy to get to, too. Just go to our homepage, Awesemo.com, and you'll see it on the banner right there. So utilize that tool for sure. Sungjae Im, 45 on DraftKings. Coming in, he led the field in strokes gained off the tee last week. Not only did he lead the field in driving accuracy, but he was also top 15 in driving distance. So obviously, Sungjae Im has total control of the golf ball. off the tee. Didn't putt all that well last week, but I gotta love him here again. 45-1, so he's being priced with another guy that I like this week. Now, I know his putter kind of went cold. His eyes closed putting method kind of ran out, but Sergio Garcia at 50-1, both of those guys seem like pretty good value right this second.
Yeah, definitely. Don't mind the price on Sergio. He's hitting it really well. I mean, I'm definitely going to have money on my boy Louis again at that price, so I'll probably avoid Sergio. But I don't mind the call. I mean, Sergio is absolutely beast moding it off the tee. So is Sanjay actually, which is part of it. Like you said, Jason, he's really finding the fairways well right now. Led the field in strokes gained off the tee last week. I think that's going to play big at Shadow Creek. Louis actually been pretty consistent off the tee as well lately. So, I think all three of those guys in this range really appealing to me. You could throw. I know Scheffler's in there too. This could be the week for Scotty, I guess. It's hard. I think long term Scheffler is probably the best player there, but I think the other guys are just a little bit more appealing to me this week with the form and stuff, and the way they're coming in. So I think Louis M and Garcia, like I said, I'm pretty much committed to two of those guys. So.
Yeah, now our chat here is talking a little bit about the nappy factor, and one of the gentlemen in there, Tokyo Swanee, he said that he tries to avoid first-time fathers in his DFS lineups, but you and I know in golf that the nappy factor is certainly real and alive. What do you think that does for Rory? Do you think that when he comes to play golf and his wife and new baby aren't traveling with him, maybe that frees him up? Or why do you think it works for golfers?
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a freedom factor there. I mean, I think there is. I think too, he had the baby a few months back, right? Like it's not fresh. It's not like, dealing with massive sleep deprivation anymore. So I think, the added break, I think it's a good spot for Rory. But in a lot of ways they're right. Guys like, they just had a baby. Like, you don't want to get on the guys right when they just had a baby last week. That just means they have to have like 2 hours of sleep. So exactly. I think it's legit to point that out, because I always see people hop on it right away. You want the delayed nappy factor, which is, I think, what we're getting here with Rory. I think he's had time to adjust, recuperate a little. Like I said, I just
get into a routine, eat as much Domino's as he wants, whatever. Yeah, I think he's had enough time.
Yeah, the Domino's, yeah. But I think Rory isn't one of those players who is like massively in need of like the fresh start from the season, because nothing was really going right for him last year. I think he's just too good a player to go too much longer without a win, though, which is the other thing factors into this. I didn't bet Rory at all last year, but if he's going to keep going out here in 2021 season at these odds, like it's going to happen soon. So again, I haven't committed to it, but I'm very interested in him at that price this week.
Last thing I'll say, we saw a video of Rory hitting some balls on the range, chasing speed. Was clocked at 191 ball speed. Right. He is definitely maybe chasing Bryson a little bit. However, Rory's 191 ball speed versus Bryson's 200. Rory's looks so much more fluid than Bryson's. It's unbelievable. It's not even close. Rory McIlroy's golf swing, I've thought for quite some time now, and I'm definitely not the only one, is one of the best in the world. So I'm excited. If he really wants to chase distance, I would love to see this guy hit at 400 and keep up with Bryson. It would be great. It'd be a good rivalry, because Rory is a good person to have a rivalry with. He doesn't really attack you. He just tries to beat you. Rather, Brooks Koepka, he likes to get into the petty game, which is the reason why I don't like Brooks Koepka, because he's too petty about things. What say you about Koepka this week? Is he in play for you? Might as well give him a couple of seconds here.
No, this is one of those situations. I'll let other people get all fancy with Brooks Koepka. I'm sure he could put in a low round on the weekend. And look, it's a no-cut event, so
yeah, he's going to get 4 rounds.
Have at it. I mean, it's kind of one of those things, right? But I'll probably just unless he's projecting like 2% owned or something, which I don't think is a possibility, then I'll just let other people do it. I mean, we got an elite field. Wolff is up there. Obviously, he can dip down. Maybe even Finau might even be in the field. So, I think Hideki won't have too much ownership. Again, unless it was some sort of ownership pivot for me, it's just a wait and see week for Brooks Koepka, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple more guys. Let's in our DFS preview here that I want to chat about. We do have, as I suspected this week, I thought we were going to get 6 above 10K, and we actually got 7 as they slide Matt Wolff up there. You surprised to see DJ, and it's only $200, But DJ 8.5 to 1 on the odds. John Rahm 10. This is on DraftKings, but they flopped. Yeah. They flopped their DK price. Surprised by that, or do you think it's too insignificant?
I was a little surprised, for sure. I mean, I wasn't expecting John Rahm to be in front of DJ. I'm not sure what led to that, to be honest. But it's a little strange. It's not like a huge difference, but I think it'll just lead to Dustin Johnson being more popular. So something to keep in mind. I mean, I'd be kind of surprised if John Rahm was higher owned than DJ at this point. Dustin Johnson also, just a tidbit. I mean, he is actually the course record holder at Shadow Creek, apparently, since they had the Renos. So, again, something else to consider, but I'm sure that narrative might get built up. So I think if anything, it's going to make for a chalky Dustin Johnson. I don't think he's going to be super, super crazy, but again, I was surprised. I mean, super surprised. I had no reason to think Dustin Johnson wouldn't be, like 11-4, maybe even 11-5 and be the most expensive player this week.
All right, this next golfer, I'm going to tell you, we've got a couple more minutes here to talk about. So this next golfer, since the restart, since all the way to the Charles Schwab Challenge, has 2 top 25s. That's golfer A. And golfer B has 3 top 25s. One golfer is priced at 8,100. One golfer is priced at 7,300. However, they're going in the exact same direction right now, and that is down. Do you know who those 2 golfers are? And are you going to roster either of them this week?
So one's Ricky, right?
Yep.
And
Jordan is the other one.
Oh, right. Spieth. Sorry, I forgot the price. Yeah, okay. Pretty obvious. I already committed to using Bubba Watson, so Spieth will pretty much be
non-existent for you, yeah.
I think so, yeah. And I got to get exposure to Hanley, so another one of my guys.
Kim is playing good, 7,100, same price.
He is actually playing good. So I can pretty much confidently say I'm out on Spieth. Ricky's a different story because we talked about this. I can't remember if we talked about this pre or on the show, but he looked fine in the first round, and I mean, now we're getting him like at a no cut event. I mean, look, I know this has been the story for Ricky Fowler for like a year now. Like, he looks good, and then it's just like disaster. Like, how much longer can we continue to chase this? But like we saw with Sergio, I mean, it's just going to come together. I mean, he's not playing poorly. He's just playing extremely inconsistently. So he's a guy I'm definitely going to look in. I think in that range too, you look at it, like, I know Paul Casey is underpriced, but that's probably going to lead to him being chalk. And then you have Answer coming off a good week. My first initial reaction to this is, I probably will very heavily consider Ricky Fowler as a pivot play here. I have confidence that the turnaround with Ricky is coming sooner than later at this point. And again, I've faded him most of the last year too, like Rory, but these are 2 players, just Rory and Ricky, like they'll get it figured out soon enough. And I think this is probably getting close to when you need to hop back on if you want to kind of be first to it. If you're okay not being first and just waiting and see, might even be the better approach, then by all means, sit back and wait.
All right, so we'll end it on this little notion that I have. I got 2 golfers that I think should be pretty good fits. Both missed on the number last week. One golfer had 11 birdies in 2 rounds, and one had 12 birdies in 2 rounds. I'd say that's pretty good. Maybe just a little bit of victim of a tough cut sweat. Harry Higgs and Lanto Griffin, both checking in at 6,300 this week. I think I'm going to have exposure to both. Like I said, I like the fact that they had over 10 birdies in 2 rounds. I mean, if they had played the weekend, it's likely that they're probably priced up with guys like Kevin Na, who made the weekend, Ryan Palmer, who made the weekend, even Cam Smith, who made the weekend at 6,800. So I guess Harry Higgs, Lanto Griffin, I don't see their talent level as much different than Cameron Smith, so to speak. So I think there's a little bit of a price discount. Anybody down low that you're focusing on, Cam Champ is also there, 6,400, but his game is just off right now.
It does seem off. It's a little unfortunate, because you love him at that price, and I think this setup would be really good for him too. But I'm not sure if you want to go there, to be honest. It sucks for me to say that, but yeah, I don't. Harry Higgs being in the field was interesting to me too. I definitely interested in both Lanto and Higgs. Those are the 2 names that popped out for me in the 6K range. Adam Long, probably another player I might take a look at. Actually, him and Fratelli probably will be the 2 players I'll take a look at there. Fratelli's a pretty good long-term player. He's been a little bit off, so I'll have to see if his ball striking isn't on. I think Adam Long might be the more interesting play there. Obviously, we've seen him pop off with some big weeks. He can get the putter going. If he can just keep the ball striking at a decent rate. So I think Adam Long at 6,600. I like him as a player. That'll be a dude I'm going to look into. Again, no cut event. Even if he has one like bad ball striking round, I think I think he can get it done. What about Mark Leishman? Actually, quickly, you got any interest there? Like, is he going to turn it around? It's another guy who.
6,800 for Mark Leishman in a no-cut event. He, typically his ownership would be like 9,000, but here's his last couple of events: cut, last place in a no-cut, last place in a no-cut, and cut. It really is bad. It looked like his back was about to fall off through that little stretch. So maybe the 3-week break has done him well. Geez, I just don't know. I used to think if he putts, he wins, but I don't think so anymore. I think I'm not really sure. I don't know what to do with the guy. I got to be honest with you. All right. Well, it's 3:02 here, so we're just coming up to the end of our time. I know it's only Monday, but let's give our picks to win because we had it last week with Matt Wolff. We said it on here. So I think there's been a little bit of theme from you and I. I think it's been enough time now that he's got into his routine with his new child. At 14-1, I'm betting Rory McIlroy this week to win. I think he gets it done.
Nice. Okay, let's just do a double Roy. And we can just celebrate on. I won't even get fancy and bring up like Am or Louis. Let's just go Rory. It's kind of my first inclination too. We just said we got to go with our first lanes. So yep, I'm on the Rory train. I think fresh starts for Rory. This guy can't go that much longer without a win. So let's go.
Well, Geoff, thanks so much. This was great. This is the PGA DFS First Look Show for the CJ Cup. We're going to be back next week, same time. We've got the golf being played at the Sherwood Country Club Zozo Championship. Was supposed to be in Japan, but obviously with the COVID travel restrictions, it got so Tiger Woods will defend his championship at a course that he knows quite well. And then, of course, we've got a couple more weeks for Bermuda Championship, the RSM, the Houston Open, and then that's right, it's Masters Week. So a great time for PGA DFS. Incredibly, even though it is the middle of the fall here. Stay with us. Of course, plenty of more stuff going on over here at Awesemo.com. And of course, if you like this content, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel here. And of course, if you're looking for more PGA DFS information for the CJ Cup, check out the show tomorrow, 2:30 afternoon. Much more time to analyze the information. It's got Ben Raza and Timothy Frank always bringing the fire takes. So until next Monday, Geoff, we will see you guys on the other side. Good luck, everyone, this week. Cheers.